An open letter from the esteemed planetologist Janil Estenbendenbroek to the Right Honorable Mayor of the Free World of Fingerol. Madam Mayor, I like to think we've become friends over the years. In my work, I have visited Fingerol dozens of times for both ecological surveys and for studies of the unique social structures that have grown up in the shadow of the planet's occupation and subsequent isolation. I have plumbed the depths of its forest, charted its seas, and worked hand in hand with its people, and with each visit I have fallen further in love with it. Thus, the discovery of Silsey runes on your world initially filled me with a sense of delight. Silsey artifacts have been found on worlds from one end of the bones to the other, and far out into the fingers, yet we still have no idea who the Silsey were, how they lived, or what became of them. They are one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries, and each new find brings us one step closer to understanding our own shared past. This is why I find the news of your development plan so alarming. While I fully respect the authority of your office, the decision to allow private interests to take control of an archaeological site is, in a word, ludicrous. And yet, somehow, you have not stopped at ludicrous, but sped straight past it into cackling and maniacal lunacy. Not content with simply looting the site, as others have done so often before, your plan converts it into a tourist destination, letting the public swarm over it, palming whatever bits they can, and contaminating what remains with refuse from, I quote, over a dozen shops and vendors, dispensing everything from replica Silsey jewel carvings to batter-fried netterworm. Madam Mayor, I love a good netterworm as much as the next girl, but this madness must stop. I entreat you, rescind this contract, else I will be forced to contact the Commission of Shared Galactic History to intervene on behalf of the academic community and the galaxy at large. Yours, in a waning admiration, Janil Estenbendenbroek, Chair of Planetary Studies, Cooperative University of the Central Spine.
Welcome to the Chimera. This is a role-playing adventure podcast where a group of college friends and longtime campaign collaborators forget to record the intro to their podcast again, and here I am doing it in post, so I will make it quick. Right now, our campaign is The Old Bones, which is a sci-fi space superhero thing. Really, you should probably go and listen from the beginning. If you're just jumping on now, it's a serial narrative, so start from the beginning. Come on, guys. We are playing with a pre-release version of the StoryPath system, which will be powering Onyx Path's Trinity Continuum games, and which we've bent and folded to cover the gaps. I am Vin LeBate. I'll be playing Sidra, a living financial instrument, and joining me today are Braden Lamb as Dang, a light-eating space rhino, Jeff Bard as Raleth, a galactic lawyer in a funky mech suit, Kacey Smith as Molly Harrow, a human technophile and gadgeteer and captain of the Chimera, Kelly Wiseman-Aspreth-Jackson as Theron Melanthios, a heretical warrior catman, and Josh Hall-Bachner, who is running the game for us, and whose voice you will be hearing in just a moment. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Okay, so when last we left our intrepid crew, I believe we had just traveled down the new link that was found to the Aue system, and we had arrived at a single planet with a force shield maintained by a network of satellites surrounding it completely. There's a single kind of central space station that is clearly kind of the single biggest location in that network, and you discovered that the Jark, the vessel of the mercenaries that you kind of followed here, was docked with it. So I think you guys were talking when we cut off about possibly detaching their ship or something. So is that still a plan you want to move up?
I think we were talking about docking with their ship on the other side and then going into the station through their ship. That's what I remember talking about. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I remember that too.
That sounds like the best path of entry to me.
And at this point, the Jark seemed to be not responding, right? It was a little, It was mysteriously silent.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it'd be good for us to be able to go through their shit and see what happened there before we dive directly into
alien
space
whatever
station.
it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can kind of dock to anything thanks to the flexible nature of your ship. So you kind of glorp onto the back. So are you just looking for a spot then where you can actually like cut through the hull or something, or?
Well, I think we'd probably look for an actual door first.
Okay. So there's there's probably like a cargo bay location that you can find. So you kind of you find yourself in a location in the the biological portion of the Chimera where the wall has kind of melted itself around this big cargo bay door on the Jark. So go ahead.
Okay, well, I can see if I can hack in and get it to open through their controls.
Give me a roll.
Let's see. We'll do reason and technology, which will be 10. Three successes plus an additional success for having electronics, so that's 4.
Okay, yeah, that's plenty. You can, so you kind of connect into their systems via one of those open communication channels that we talked about. You route through the pathways, you find the controller for the door. So there's a big hiss, and it kind of opens up, and it lets you out into a docking bay, which probably to no one's surprise appears to be full of all kinds of stolen shit, basically. A quick look around, among other things, immediately demonstrates like some of the materials and equipment that were specifically noted as being missed on the station that you visited previously. They're clearly in here, so in case you needed any additional evidence for the fact that they raided the place, that's there. On top of that, there's a variety of kind of like small vessels and commodities and various other types of stuff that you'd kind of expect to see in the cargo bay of a sketchy ship.
Yeah, I make sure to take whatever the galactic equivalent of photographs are of everything and just put it into my files.
Cool. Otherwise, it's dead quiet. You can't hear anything, but it doesn't look particularly unusual.
Okay.
If there's any mining equipment that's like plasma based, I might set that aside for lunch.
For lunch. Okay. All right. Yeah, that could happen. Okay, and then there's kind of a couple doors on either side of the far end of the bay that kind of lead off into the rest of the ship.
Do we want to all go through the ship together, or do we want to split up into a couple teams and spread out?
General rule of thumb, stick together.
Yeah, that's my vote.
Yeah, Dang says, yeah, let's not split up. It's rarely wise.
Okay. Then Molly just picks a door, points to that one, says that one.
Okay. It empties out into just kind of there's basically kind of an L-shaped hallway that you come out near the bottom of the L, so it kind of goes off a little bit to one side, and then it kind of bends and goes straight forward, so you can tell that kind of like runs up the spine of the ship, basically. And with a little examination, you can kind of find basically the vessel map. So, the way this is set up, it keeps mostly barrack soldiers. It's big enough to hold maybe 20 total, plus this big cargo bay. It is not really a vessel designed for long-term living. It's clearly something you kind of go out, on a mission, come back. And there's a pathway through the central hallway to kind of a side airlock that is actually connected to the station, if that's what you want to take. Otherwise, there's other parts of the ship you can try to explore.
Well, Theron, can you smell any, I don't know, dead or alive things that were alive or are alive? Maybe we can head in that direction?
Well, let's see. Senses stuff is... What is it? It's something funny. I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's analysis, right?
Yeah.
I should have the document open, and I don't, about what the various skill combinations are.
Spotting is cunning plus analysis. I don't
Cunning
know
plus
what
analysis.
smelling would be.
I think that's still spotting. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
it's just spotting with your nose.
That makes sense.
So, sure. Detail investigator. So, that's 7 for me, which I will roll, Josh. And I just want to remind you that I have hair on the back of my neck, which means that it's very hard for me to be surprise attacked. Or I have a special defensive into surprise attack. Not that I'm particularly
remind me of that
expecting
now.
that, but yeah, I feel like it could become relevant.
Yep.
All right. What's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? 8 successes on 7 dice. That's pretty good.
Ooh,
Wow.
That's damn
3
good.
10s.
Cool. Okay, kind of sniffing around, you get a real bouquet of smells. As I mentioned, this is, had soldiers barracked in it, so it is not pleasant by any stretch of the imagination.
Gross.
You can definitely identify that there were, living people here fairly recently. You can't smell any evidence that anybody is alive on this vessel at the moment. Nothing that smells like it's current. There are some traces of blood, but it's hard to tell quite, how old it is. It doesn't seem like it's a ton. So
I smell the trail, but no prey.
I'm going to see if maybe I can access their logs. See if there's anything, going chronologically backwards.
okay. Give me a roll.
All right. What are we calling that? Is that analysis also, or is that...
That's probably analysis. Yeah.
I don't think I have anything that specifically helps with that. So, 1... I got 1.
Okay. Whatever they're doing to kind of track their logs, it's mostly encrypted and carefully kind of coded up as you'd kind of expect a high-class mercenary outfit to do. And the unlock key on that is not anywhere obvious. So you can certainly find timestamps. So you can get a pretty good concept of how many hours. It was I think it was 6 or something hours ago or something that they would have arrived out here. And a sequence stretching back before that that looks, just based on the timestamps and everything that you can pull out, pretty it lines up with what you've put together so far. After about half an hour, there's kind of a series of entries on the logs that look like somebody calling in, pretty regularly, about once per half hour, and then maybe hour and a half ago they stop, and then there are no more log entries.
How full was their cargo bay?
When they got here,
Yeah.
there was nothing when you passed through the cargo bay that seemed at all like it would have sourced from here. Almost everything that wasn't stolen out of the previous base was in some kind of normal galaxy packaging, shipping container type stuff. So
Yeah, no, I'm just
it
wondering.
looks like it was already pretty full, and there wasn't necessarily room to take
Right.
a lot of volume.
Okay, I thought so.
top of
Yeah. So it seems like they might have been as surprised at this new link as anyone else. They weren't prepared to go on a raid to this place. They already went on a raid, and then this happened. Yeah, and also because it's not a long-term ship. Yeah. It's seeming like they weren't expecting to go on this adventure.
Their greed left them ill-equipped. They ought to have jettisoned the excess cargo in favor of whatever new things they might have found in this place.
So I'm going to look at the map and see where the bridge is and the engine room, because I kind of want to get a look at both those things, and I guess whatever we run into along the way.
So you want to look which one first?
Bridge.
Okay. The bridge of this ship is pretty small and cramped. There's room for 3 total people to operate, one in kind of a captain capacity, and then 2 others to manage some subset of the actual navigations, the external interfacing, the communications, and the weapons. there's the thing that you notice is that next to kind of the captain's chair, there's actually a mug of what would have been a hot beverage. And it's thoroughly cooled, but it definitely seems like somebody was planning to be back here by now.
Okay. There's no signs of like struggle or
here? No.
Okay. Then I would also sort of, since we're up here by direct access to the communication links, try to get in to the logs a little better than Sidra was able to, and also any like outgoing, ingoing communications that were recorded. Okay. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6. Any more?
Okay.
We good at 6?
6. Nope, it's 6.
49.
Yeah, so when you dig into the communication specifically, there was definitely a message that came in, and lining up the timestamps on this, you could see that this definitely would have followed pretty briefly after the videos that you uncovered on the previous station about the new link appearing. Mm-hmm. Basically, coming in and ordering an emergency change of plans, directing them, basically to head for this new identified system and do some reconnaissance and kind of take necessary steps. There's not a lot of detail, but it certainly seems like it lines up with the theory that Dang just stated, which is that they weren't really planning on being here. Okay. And in terms of the logs, there's not a ton more detail. The biggest thing that you can identify here is that on all of those individual half-hour check-ins, so those were check-ins from the vessel out to members of the crew who had moved onto the station, and that they have a kind of a progress counter related to something coming out of the ship, not going back in.
Okay.
Hey, what do you say to rigging up their controls to require a code or something from us? Rather than setting this ship adrift, we make them work for us if they're still around.
I mean, that sounds like fun to me.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely within, it's definitely a thing that's possible.
Okay. Should I roll for that?
Mm-hmm.
God damn it.
As it lands.
Because I never like it when I don't know what I'm going into. I'd rather have as much firepower on our side as we can.
I've got 3 for that one.
Okay. Does one of your specialties apply to this?
Let's electronics?
Yeah.
Okay. So then 4.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the ship does not seem to be particularly well secured against being boarded. It seems like in typical operation that is pretty far from the list of things that they would expect to happen. So there's control systems that already exist, and you can certainly wire some kind of external device into those in such a way that you can lock it down. Like, you guys are operating on a bit of a tight schedule in a sense, so you can't necessarily be sure how well it would stand up to like long-term repeated efforts to defeat, but certainly in terms of locking somebody out in the immediate sense, your goal.
Can I also set it up so that it notifies us when someone's trying to get in?
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay, cool. Then I would say let's kind of poke through the rest of the ship, and I'd like to get a look at the engine just to sort of see. I don't know. It's the other place that Molly understands very well, so if there's anything interesting down there.
Engine room is pretty typical. You've got the Snake Eye engine in the center. Mm-hmm. The Snake Eye in particular that they have is fairly complete, so it seems like they've refueled recently.
Oh, can I take that?
Oh, yeah. You can just take it.
Okay.
The ship will definitely not go anywhere. normally it's kind of a piece of work to do that, but that's one of the things that your hand is going to kind of enable you to do. So you can certainly get it into, a carrying device and kind of send it off.
Cool.
It definitely won't go anywhere now. Well, it can leave the station, but it won't leave the system.
It can't ride the bones.
Yeah.
So, other than that, everything's normal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, being kind of a mercenary, they kept a fairly tight ship here. So the engine room is pretty clean. It's pretty well maintained. There's not a lot of extraneous garbage around anywhere here.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, I just like to look through any space we haven't looked at this point. I'm just basically looking for signs of something that's more out of place than like a sitting cup of hot drink that never got drunk. To give us a hint of, like, did they choose to leave, or were they taken, or were they...
Does somebody want to specifically make an effort to make, like, kind of a physical investigation? And give me a roll if so.
Well, that's kind of my thing, is physical investigations of crime scenes or potential crime scenes.
Yeah, because what I've given you is kind of what's superficially available, so anything else you're going to have to dig for a little.
Right. So that's 7 plus 1 for my specialty. 3.
Okay. So digging around, you can clearly tell that the members of the crew here, basically everybody left after the initial docking. Like they had a couple people go out, kind of secure the area, and then after that, the entire vessel basically disembarked into the station. You could see that there were probably groups of about 6 who were coming in and out at semi-regular intervals, carrying, a variety of heavy stuff out with them. When you kind of dig around about that, you can definitely see that most of what they were bringing seemed to come from either some kind of, device storage areas that, kind of excess communications equipment and all that kind of stuff would be, and then the armor. So there's definitely something, something from in there that they were carrying out in notable numbers.
So maybe I'm not clear. So they were taking material from their ship onto the station.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yep.
And they were doing that in these groups of 6, and then after a certain point, they stopped.
All right. They were starting some sort of an operation, I think a military one, aboard the station. And then action ceased. I don't know why, but I don't think for good reasons.
Well, for them, right? Not for us. Good reasons for us.
Well, we'll see. I think at this point, maybe we should see if we can get on the station and get a closer look at what's going on there.
I'm in 100% agreement with that.
Agreed.
I mean, we're going to be laying eyes on something that, I don't know, people haven't seen in forever. We could own this place.
Especially if the people who got here before us have already been killed by whatever's here.
I've got the paperwork ready.
Okay. So you guys all proceed through. You get to the airlock here. As you're getting closer, Theron can definitely tell. Yeah, there's some kind of a blood-like smell coming in through here. It would have wafted in briefly because it's the airlock, so you can't necessarily get the full details of what's going on there, but this is definitely the source of it. There's a big metal opaque door leading into the station.
Okay, it's the werewolf splicers that were crewing this ship, right?
You don't know.
We don't know who was on it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I just mean, is the blood scent like something that I've smelled before, or is it like super duper alien blood because we're in this crazy new star system? Like, I'm just wondering.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty typical.
It's a familiar blood smell. Yeah, it's not like nitrogen-based blood or something.
Nope.
Okay, let's open the door.
All right.
I'll take up a defensive position on the side of it.
I'll take the other side.
I'll get behind someone bigger than me.
I'll get behind everyone.
Okay. So the doors start to slide open horizontally. As soon as they've cracked open, the smell gets strong enough for everybody, and you can see that there's kind of a squarish chamber here, and the back wall is basically just painted with blood. As the doors open further, on one side, one of them seems to bump into something. There's kind of a little, roar kind of noise, and then ka-chunk as it kind of comes free, and it knocks something off, and a humanoid body falls from above the door where you are, hits the ground, and breaks into cubes, essentially.
Into cubes?
Yes.
Cubes like it was frozen, or cubes like something crazy is going on?
More like something crazy is going on, but like meat cubes, not like nice, pleasant cubes.
Oh, well, as long as it's meat cubes.
The body that it had was divided
it's not like
into
pixels
cubes.
Or something.
Yeah.
It's still meat.
Meat pixels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it was pre-cubed, and then when it landed,
Yes.
the cubes dispersed.
That is exactly
so
what it was
like it's Cube. Like it's the movie Cube.
Meat.
Yes.
Sidra. Also terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I got that one.
Yeah.
And it's pretty shredded now, but certainly the coloration on like what you can make out of the remains of the uniform suggests that this was one of the crew of the ship.
I advise extreme caution.
I mean, it doesn't look that bad.
Is the uniform also shredded? Like, is the uniform intact?
No, it's little scraps of cloth now, too,
Okay.
same way.
It's not the magical meat slicer that only cuts meat.
Okay, well, that's great.
Are the cubes uniform?
They look pretty uniform, yeah.
Get your roller out, man.
Yes, well, this was not done by normal hand, certainly.
This was a professional cuber.
The dude with a jigsaw. This is...
It's almost like it went through a strainer or something, right?
I see you're someone who's cubed before.
What would it seems I don't want to as a character jump to conclusions, but I've got a theory. What might I? Let's see, cunning or reason? Oh, reason's not good for me. I'm just thinking like, yeah, what might I do to paint a picture of what happened here?
Okay. Well, let me give a couple other details about the space, and then, if you hold on 1 second, I can bring up the sheet. Just so I can look at the stats again. So if you're trying to put together like a theory of what happened based on the evidence and suggest something, it's probably reason enigmas would be my guess.
Yeah.
Or analysis?
Well, analysis
Depending
is
on
really
how you swim
more. Analysis is really more sensory stuff. I think enigmas is the better argument.
Oh, okay. Then I will not jump to that conclusion.
Yes. Dang is not the right guy to make that conclusion.
No.
Okay.
As a player, I have a theory, but
there's a couple other things. So one, obviously once you're in here, the blood smell gets much stronger, obviously. But once you've kind of acclimated to that, there's clearly some other type of smell as well that seems more alien. It's definitely emanating from something that you would say is probably a life form, but it's kind of more nitrogen-y, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
And that's clearly a relatively recent tone here. Also, so the room is kind of squarish. One of the things you notice when you look it over is, one, that it doesn't seem to be... it doesn't seem to have any obvious doors in the sense that you'd normally think of it. The walls of the room are covered by all these different types of kind of piping. Different things about the size like a pneumatic tube. Some of them are clear, some of them are metallic and invisible. They network around and down and through in all kinds of crazy ways. And there's probably 20 different input ports that looks like things that can kind of slide open and close, some of which are stuck open, that lead into these tunnels. And then on one side, there's what looks like basically kind of a maintenance hatch that is, around the size that, a human-ish person could move, or bigger than humanish person, but could move through with reasonable comfort. But
well, the hatch seems like the most direct means of getting somewhere if we don't want to get lost in all this tubing and sucked about to places that we don't know. Is there anything in the room that looks like something that would let me access like controls or like get into the system?
Yeah, so there's a few spots where basically kind of these different almost like nodules like stick out of the wall in various ways that are clearly electrified.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems like the most obvious kind of control input surface that you can see in this room.
I'd like to step over the cubes and hook into that and see if I can find a map of this place, maybe some data files, or anything that looks like recent recordings, recent communications,
sure.
And blueprints. So I think that's the same room.
The equipment that had been moved out of the ship is not present in this room, is it?
Nope.
Okay. I feel a little bit better.
Including my bonus success, that's 5.
Okay. Yeah, so as soon as you start trying to communicate into this, it's clear that this is definitely like way off the path of what you're used to. Most computerized systems in the known galaxy have at least some amount of kind of shared, architecture or something just based on kind of activity between the different, races and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this clearly is just like not something that you're used to at all. There's kind of a weird interface. The patterns that things are laid out within the system are kind of strange. Everything is kind of connected together by like multiple different like strands, but in a way that seems like too information dense for, your purposes. Like normally, like, in a human file system, you might have a certain amount of indexing where you can like think of big important things to connect back to something. But here, it seems like almost everything is stored in a way that it's all connected, tightly together by this network of very subtly gradated lines where the actual details of that are a little bit difficult to make out at first.
Okay.
So that said, once you start probing into it a little, there's clearly some kind of basic interface points that can respond to even your uncertain, commands here. And with a little trial and error, it's not too hard to start to get something. So once you dig into that a little bit, you're able to get access to basically a layout of the station with some kind of like status information. And also, when this comes up, it's clear that part of the setup here is that the different pieces of the station are somewhat mobile. So rather than transmitting, rather than actually like moving from like room to room necessarily, some of it might be, actually moving things within the station.
Okay.
So the layout that you see, the whole place is kind of circular, and it's basically built on a section of kind of 3 rings. There are a lot of different kind of compartments similar to the size of the one that you're in here. There are some places further on that are much bigger, kind of like a big percentage of an arc of one of the concentric circles. And at the very center, there's kind of a single big area. You see, status-wise, that clearly power or systems on some of these parts are failing or on the fritz. It seems like it's mostly pretty functional, but it certainly hasn't been maintained in a long time. And it's hard to get an exact sense of how to map it out between what you're looking at and what's been going on with this historically. But based on the only factor that you really have available, which is comparing the output that you got of the numbers counting up with the records here, it's been a long time since anybody's been here and utilized the systems.
Okay.
Sense.
Is there any communication between this station and the power grid around the planet?
Yeah, it clearly connects out to... So all the grid, everything seems to connect back into here. So this definitely, seems to be the central hub for that network of force fields.
Okay. Is that something that would be easily deactivated, or does there seem to be a lot of...
It is built to not be easily deactivated, by command.
Okay. I'm not going to do that then, just yet. Okay, so I'm going to kind of report back what I found, and if there was any kind of map that I was able to download, I'll send that also onto Rolith and anyone else who has a means of easily accessing that kind of thing. And then kind of just, say this is definitely... This place has been around here for a long while, and it doesn't really work the way any other system I've ever used worked. It kind of felt like... I don't know if anyone's ever watched a 3D movie without the 3D glasses on.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like that, but hacking. Just kind of different. So I don't think this is a species that whoever built it, I don't think they've been in touch with, most of the species that we know, which follows considering there was no way to get here before now that we knew of. But I still don't really have any clear sense of where we want to go next. But the most recent people that have been here probably are all dead. So I'm going to repeat the suggestion to proceed with extreme caution that Dang voiced.
Finders, keepers. I have a question about how much blood there is in the room. Is it one body's worth of blood or several?
No, it's more.
Okay.
It's more.
But there's only one body's worth of meat cubes.
Of cubes.
Yes, there's one body worth of body, but multiple bodies worth of blood.
Okay.
And this hatch on the other side of the room, it's like a hatch, right? It's not really like a... I get the impression this is not as... It's not set up in the same sort of generous space kind of way I would hope for an airlock, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure.
And when you said you moved components around, this room, could it be moved to another part of the station?
Yes, that's the conclusion.
Right. So it's sort of like a sideways elevator, or it's a great class elevator, right? It goes around, up and down. Yeah.
When I was looking at, when I was seeing that was a thing that could be done, is it clear how to do it?
You think you could get a hang of it. It's not necessarily trivial to control, but a lot of this again is kind of trial and error, but poking and prodding at some of the portions within it. You got something to kind of, you get it, the room kind of shudders and shakes really briefly. And then, you can see, okay, if I poke around in here, and maybe if I do this, and, this kind of energy. And,
And there's the tubes, and there's the hatch, but there's nothing that's obviously if you just want to leave this room, walk through this door kind of door.
If you had to guess, the tubes are the way that you're supposed to leave the room.
How big are the tubes?
They're the size of a bank pneumatic.
Oh, okay. So I can't even get my hand in
Okay,
there.
so first you get yourself cut up into cubes, and then your cubes go places in the tubes. Right?
Oh, actually, I mean...
are the tubes round or are they square?
They're round.
Okay.
Well, Molly's gonna kind of wrinkle her nose and pick up a cube and stick it in one of the tubes and see what happens. Okay.
So it goes into the tube.
Never to be seen again.
Hopefully.
Somewhere in the distance you hear, "Ah!"
And now that monster's soul can never be at peace.
So, next thing she's gonna do, unless anyone else wants to do anything, is she's gonna sort of pick up her silver hand with her other hand and hold it under the same tube that she put the cube in, let it crawl in.
Oh, God.
Okay.
and see what happens.
How much effort is it going to put into staying in place versus moving?
No,
versus...
it's going to ride if the pneumatic tube wants to take it, but I want it to be able. I want to watch. She's going to snap her goggles down so she can see where it's going.
Yep. Okay, so once it go, basically the way that the suction is kind of set up here, if something's just near the top, nothing's going to happen. It has to go in a certain way when it kind of catches, and after that, it starts being pulled through this at pretty high speeds. Now, once you see this going in here, you can basically use the location that you're getting from your hand alongside the information that you're getting from the system to kind of map out how the computer systems mapped this pipeline network, and you can pretty quickly see that these seem to go and connect all throughout the entire station, very extensively. They branch and reconnect in a lot of different ways, and they lead off to a bunch of smaller kind of circular or goblet-like kind of little chambers that come off to the side of this network that aren't accessible from the larger rooms, per se, that you saw previously. And there's breaks in the pathway where basically kind of little electrical impulses can trigger a shift in the directionality so that you can arrive at the destination you're looking for.
Okay, so some tubes you can kind of pick a branch way.
Yep.
Once you're in it. All right, so I'm gonna also download that augmented map with all the tubing and also send that to Rolith and anyone else who can access it. Or,
are you gonna turn around, or are you gonna try to explore the side things, or are you gonna try to go to some other?
I'm gonna let the hand wherever it lands in the tube that it went, kind of look around and see where it gets spat out.
Okay. So just following the route, it kind of goes through the network for a little ways, winds up going into a smaller room in the center, the middle of the three rings. And it actually runs into basically not a doorway, but the aperture is closed on it when it gets there. So, the same way that you could use the signals to kind of transit through the network, you use the signals to open this up if you want.
Yeah,
Is the meat cube there?
No, the meat cube went somewhere else.
Oh.
The hand kind of forms into a fist and shakes at the closed door. And then proceeds to see if it can jerry-rig it open. Actually, I'm going to just see if I can make my dog stop barking, and I'll be right back. Sorry, there was squirrel antagonism going on.
Oh, yeah, well, you can't blame him for that. You gotta get a squirrel.
Okay.
Okay, so are you opening, or?
Yeah, I'm going to try and open it.
Okay. So the finger has to kind of tap in a set pattern in certain spots around it. There's this interface that you're starting to get the sense of how it works, which is, suited to something, but certainly not anything like a humanoid that you're used to. But, you tap and kind of provide these tiny, gentle little, bursts of electricity, and the aperture slides open. So you see a room on the other side. There is a large kind of central circular table-like thing. I say like because it's flat like a table would be, but there's lots of little, depressions in it, kind of like shallow bowls that are set into the table itself around at various points. There are, some of these, at the edges of it, there are some of these nodules similar to what you have in the room that you're in. So little things that rise up out of the corner and that are amenable to electronic interface usage. And then sprawled out to one side of that is a somewhat more intact body of one of the mercenaries. This one, it seems like basically, it basically just got the center of his chest area exploded out with some kind of force, but otherwise, intact.
Okay.
And so he's got, a big plasma weapon. He seems to have some various kind of technological devices that he was carrying, like a satchel, basically, as well.
Can I propose a dramatic edit? This is mostly for group convenience, but I'd like to propose that Molly has been working on just a way to project what her hand sees, like onto into the air or onto a wall, so that everyone can see what it's doing, instead of just her. So
which is it though? Is it the wall or the air?
I like the air better because it's more versatile. So let's say the air. So she's gonna call that up probably once the hand got through the tube, so that everyone gets to see the next gory body and the strange table with the pits. I think I'm gonna have the hand kind of look at the table and the pitting a little more closely, and see if I can figure out kind of what the deal is with that, like what those are for.
Okay.
Molly, this isn't that game you told me about, is it? That Hungry Hippos?
No, there's more marbles in that one and less carnage.
Less, not none.
Not none carnage, but less. Okay, so let me see. So this would be probably analysis and reason. And then since I've got nerd, science can also come into that, and because I have code cracker enigmas, basically. All right. So that's analysis is 2, reason is that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14. All right. Okay. 6, and then I don't know what kind of technology this is. I don't know if there's any kind of bonus for trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I'll apply it there. So that's going to get you a total of 7.
Okay.
So the most obvious thing here, so the overall table surface is kind of made of kind of standardized metal. What you can see is that the bowls are actually, it's kind of a very smooth gradation, so there's some kind of advanced like material science going here, but they're actually lined by something that's kind of more like a super high-tech ceramic type surface. So it's something that's designed to be basically very low resistance to what's the word for liquids, that viscous. So for more viscous liquids, it's designed to allow them to kind of drain off. So it's kind of like, an advanced version of like hydrophobic coatings or something like that.
Okay.
Versus the metal around it, which would kind of not have that quality. And they're all positioned within basically such a way that you can see they line up to one of the nodules on the edge. Even though some of them are set closer to the middle, the massing nodules kind of come out a little bit further along. So there's a direct path between, each of these.
Okay. Then I guess I'm going to walk the hand over and play with that nodule that everything seems to be sort of orienting towards. Okay.
Right, so you see there's another computer access station here. This one, though, basically kind of the permissions, like what you have available to you at this point, is a little bit more open. So you can start to get kind of a few pieces of information, right? Okay. So first thing, there's at least 2 other mobile things within the ship. It's not tracking something by life forms, but there's one spot that there seems to be a chamber where something is moving slowly, and then you see occasionally something slip into one of the rooms, kind of move quickly through it, and then slip back out.
Okay.
And once it goes off into the pipes, your ability to track anything else there is gone. So you can just see that it comes in, goes out. So there's 2 things moving.
Okay.
You can see that there's external matter, or something that's been brought on from the ship, and you can see that there's kind of one section in the central room where there's a whole bunch of stuff, and then other places throughout basically the outer ring where it's placed in, reasonably evenly divided way.
Okay. Are either of the moving things moving in any kind of notable pattern?
It's really unclear what's going on with the fast-moving one.
Yeah.
The slow one is in one room. There's something that's moving around in there, but it's not even.
Is that
okay?
One of the rooms that has equipment in it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna relay what I found, and I'm also gonna see if I can just, like, using the tube map that we have now, get my hand to get into one of the tubes so it gets sent back to me.
Sure. Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. So it sort of shoops in and skitters out and floats over and settles back and becomes just a hand. Okay, well, we've got a few places now that are more notable than others. We've got one with something that's moving and also some things that were added from these guys, right? And then we've got a space that seems to be the hub of whatever they were doing. So I'm thinking maybe one of those places might be a good place to check out for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we check, because we're on the outer ring right now, right?
Yes.
It seems to me that checking one of the rooms that has equipment but not a creature would be a good first step, just to see what that equipment is.
I'd actually like to see if we can find that slow-moving something. Maybe it's one of the XS, and they can tell us what they know while they still can.
Fair enough. We can move this whole room there, can't we?
So you cannot move it there. So there's ability to move the rooms around, but it's not like completely just slide everything kind of around to exactly where you want. There's a certain amount of movement within each of the rings. And so that is in the innermost of the three. So there's a little bit of kind of, pathing that you have to do to get something here in the outer ring to line up with a spot in the middle ring. Then there's some kind of some of these larger hallway type ones that I talked about. Like some of them are small rooms, some of them are much longer. So the middle one is composed almost entirely of basically three segments that kind of split it up. And so, there's mechanisms to get from one of those potentially into one further along. So you have to walk, certainly, some distance, but you can maneuver the ring such that you can create that pathway.
Awesome. Works for me. Oh, wait. Actually, good question. Do I fit through this access hatch?
Through the access hatch as it is right now? No.
And that's the only way to exit? Besides the tubes?
It's the only way that's... It's the only thing that's visible.
All right.
Right now.
Wait, what about... Because on the other side of so the room has two exits, really, once it moves, because it has the way we came in and it has that hatch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Good point.
Yep.
So if we can move it around so that the way we came in is now a door leading to some place that's useful for us, you can go out that door.
That makes sense.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. It's like a
But
a
right
service
now it faces
elevator.
out, so...
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try to do that so that we can set up a pathway to get to the room with the slow-moving whatever it is.
Okay, so you're starting to activate the process to move towards this pathway. Mm-hmm. So once you do this, there's some kind of chunk noises and some kind of lights in various places start to kind of flash on and off. There's also some sounds created by the system and some scents. So, Theron, you can kind of tell, it's a little weird. You can't quite place what it is, but you can almost tell that there's supposed to be a directionality associated with it.
This smells like West.
Yeah, basically. You're not sure how that works, and if you want to figure it out, you probably have to sit with it for a little while. But it clearly works somehow. So there's some kind of gentle kind of thrumming noises that are made as it's moving and lights. You could feel basically that it's kind of transiting and everything. and it goes for a minute, and then it shifts around, and once it's arrived, the lights and everything stop, and some kind of identifying lights around the large door that you came through kind of light up, kind of indicate that door is available.
Can I ask this? I mean, I'm probably not going to have detected this, but the smells that Theron was getting, did they seem to be incidental or intentional? Like, well, it sort of smells this way because air is changing, or it's like part of the system is something using scent to let the users know that this is the direction you're headed.
The scents from the movement were definitely intentional. It seems like it's produced by the system as part of the sensory communication of what's going on.
Smell UI.
Right. It's like the light up numbers on the elevator, except it smells.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah.
So whatever species controlled this station also had enhanced senses compared to humans, probably.
Can you move it just a little bit to the strawberry?
Okay, so the rooms seem to be set up in the way that we tried to get them to be set up.
Yep. So, basically this is going to let into one of these long hallways along the center path, which is kind of subdivided a little bit inside. And then, on the far end, you can get access to the inner circle ring that you're hoping for.
Okay.
Are you going to open the door?
Are we ready to open the door, guys?
I think we should get into a defensive position first.
Okay. That means me going behind things.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm.
I assume the position.
You're about to open the door. Theron, now is when your senses alert you that something surprising is going to happen.
Don't open that door.
Unfortunately, it's notifying you that it's happening from the opposite side.
Oh, shit. Okay. So I whirl around to face it's from the opposite side of the room, right? From where the hatch is.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So I round on whatever's happening on the other side of the room. From
the hatch, kind of bursts out at what seems like a pretty rapid speed. At first it just looks like this indistinguishable kind of pinkish goo with metallic sparkles almost inside of it, right? Which, at first it's just kind of coming out almost as a liquid. But then once it's out, you see tendrils of it very quickly reach out and form 6 long, jagged scythes pointing forward in these kind of and basically the metallic bits kind of flowing forward to allow it to extrude these metal blades, from its central surface. And it basically bursts forward, stretches them all out to kind of make this fan of blades, and is moving at a high rate of speed towards all of you.
Molly says, "Oh my god, that's super cool. Also, fuck balls."
So, Theron, given that you have back of the neck, we could probably just assume that you have first initiative here.
Okay. Then I will definitely.
And so, just by the time you get to act, basically it's in midair. It's got 9 of these. Basically, and it's just kind of spread out, so it's a big goo center, and then 9 big sharp blades around it.
Is there really a hub, or is it just like a 9-pointed web? Is there a central mass?
There's a central mass.
Okay. Then, so it's in the air, so I will also leap into the air and endeavor to cut it in half. Roughly, okay. 4 tendrils on one side, 5 on the other.
Okay, go for
it. Yeah, so 4, and my scale bonus, is this regular medium size, or is this a large thing?
This is a large thing.
It's a large thing, so +2. So 6.
Okay. And you're just aiming for the central area.
Yeah, I'm just trying to cut it in half.
Okay, so you could, jumping into the air, you could pretty trivially cut it in half. Its path of motion is based on the assumption that it's going to kind of have full control over its, shape and spread here. So by cutting it open, it kind of, the 2 parts split around your blade and kind of veer off to the sides. each of them hits kind of a wall to either side of the door, not quite impacting with any of you, with kind of a mixture of a squish and a clang, right?
Right.
So it's gonna take another action immediately after you here, and you see as soon as these impact, almost immediately they kind of drip down to the ground, and you can see them re-extrude what basically like little insect legs at the bottom, kind of like 14 little pairs of metal pokey legs on each one. They kind of form these centipede shapes that are skittering back together at, again, a high rate of speed.
Oh my god, so cool.
All right, this is definitely successfully gross.
Yeah, I was really hoping for more of an adorable Dragon Quest style slime. This is more terrifying.
Not your slime of choice. Yeah, this is a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so I should pick the next person, right?
Yep.
Let's go for Raiden.
All right. Force field.
Okay.
Around me and Molly. That'll be my action, and that's not a thing that I need to roll for, right? That just adds to my
Yep, that's just added defense.
Okay, so but if it's not a roll, does it still cost an action?
That's a good question, actually. I don't think we talked about the rules for if he's extending it to someone else, whether that takes an action or not. I guess probably not like a full turn action, at least.
It depends, too, on, like, the radius, like, what's a normal radius for his force field, and if someone just happens to be inside it versus,
because I guess in the previous game we had you do some, like, active stunts with that in terms of trying to, like, accomplish certain additional things with the force field, and we had those be actions, but in this case, because it's purely defensive, you can probably take a full, like, regular action as well.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll do that then. I'll hit the larger half of the slime with strobe.
Nice.
Strobe? Okay, now remind me how your strobe manifests, like, visibly.
Roll it. Okay, the text I have from you is roll a specified attack, for example, presence plus aim, against an enemy's defense stat. Each 2 successes gives them a debility of -1 to a max of -5 for rolls related to the strobed sense for the remainder of the scene.
So what sense is it, and what does it look like or sound like or whatever when you do this? Because I remember we talked about this, but this was like months ago at this point, so I don't remember exactly how. Because it's like energy based, right?
Yeah. I guess my theory was that it's light. It's a bright flash of light, but maybe this doesn't sense light.
Well, we know it smells.
I'm gonna. Yeah.
I will just remind you that in the elevator there were three senses that were being targeted that humans have: scent, sound, and vision. So those were the 3 that seemed to be set for these things to use.
That were being okay.
Stuff.
All right. I'll strobe its sight. Or I guess, sorry, it's defense stat. That's not a sense. It's always going to be sight.
And so does this just look like flashing bright lights coming out of your hand or something? Or not? Sorry, tentacle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just sort of crossing the tentacles and really quickly jittering them in the direction of the target. And
that's much
bright
like I said.
bright like, classic Hollywood paparazzi, like flash bulbs all over.
So you basically
firing
like
around
go
the target.
Aggressive raver on somebody, and you just like, I'm waving my light sticks at you. I'm waving my light sticks at you.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. Roll it.
So let's see. Presence plus aim. Yeah. I've also got marksman, which for aim.
Yeah, that should be fun. You're trying to hit something small here, so I think it checks out.
So marksman is whenever the player spends momentum to hit with a shooting action, you're getting additional 2 successes. We don't have any momentum to spend at this time,
Not yet.
right?
Right. So yeah, it's not. That's not
Okay,
relevant to
so it
us.
doesn't get to. Okay, so it's just a regular for 9 dice. Oh, but I have a specialty for. Oh, quantum bolt is probably not going to be the same as strobe. So, all right. Looks like 3 successes.
Okay. So, upon kind of making your flashing lights at it, you see parts of the slime that are kind of closest in your direction. You see them kind of peel back and kind of like start churning almost. Like it kind of looks almost like the head of the centipede is kind of peeling back and kind of reshaping itself.
Gross.
And it stops moving for a second. So it's reacting in some way to the sensory input here.
Cool. Gross. Cool.
Who do you want to go next?
Let's have Molly go next.
I don't know if I have anything very offensively useful, but I think I'd like to just flip through my various spectra and see if there's anything obvious that these guys use ultraviolet stuff too, kind of thing, just to see if there's any sense that they have that we don't that might be useful.
So you're just going to flip through the spectra?
Yeah.
Okay. Going through, there's no obvious visual information present anywhere, either on the slime itself or any of the nearby area, in any of the kind of past human visibility spectrum that you would tend to look at. What you do get flipping through pretty quickly is you can identify with a strong a strong certainty here that what you're looking at isn't just a biological organism. It's a mechanically enhanced biological organism.
Oh, cool. All right.
That's where you're a Viking.
Yeah, if you want to dig into that anymore, that's possible. Although again, right now it's trying to kill you, so
right.
Keep that in mind.
So was that my action, or can I try one more thing?
You can try something else. That's just observing.
Okay, so I'm gonna send my hand over to the if I can get through the bubble, over to one of the centipede things that's sort of peeling and recovering and seems to be recovering, and I'm just gonna have it try and assume a similar shape.
Similar shape?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's sort of reform from a hand into this sort of centipede prickly thing and see what it does.
We are friends.
Okay. I don't think that's a roll, so we could just have it do that.
Okay.
Okay. So these guys, whatever the constituent pieces of this thing that you were dealing with is going to act again. So there's kind of two sides of this. Once you've disrupted the one dang, the other centipede is going to kind of change its behavior. Its head is going to peel back, and it's basically going to kind of make this large set of kind of animalistic mandibles, maybe about 2 feet across. And I think at this point it's going to aim soft targets, so it's going to go directly at Sidra. So it's going to make an attack there. So it's got an attack with 5 successes coming at you. So it's basically just kind of leaping and basically just trying to munch at, I guess, your legs, because it's pretty short and it's not going that high up in the air. So just basically these big, bitey, sharp mandibles. And again, anytime it's kind of moving, anything kind of squishy and biological tends to be the pink part, and then any of these kind of things it's trying to attack you with are actually, kind of the extruded metal.
So if I go full defense, that gets me an extra 2 defense points, right?
Yes, I think that's correct.
Yeah, that sounds like the plan for this.
Okay, what does that get you to total?
5.
Okay, well then that's just fine then. So tell me what active defense looks like then if you're trying to stay out of this thing's grasp.
In this case, she's just sort of hopping back out of the way and
So you're literally kind of doing a little defensive dance here, just kind of trying to
just kind of
keep from getting bit.
Kicking at it, but not in any attempt to actually hit it.
Okay.
I don't like this thing.
And then, meanwhile, the other one, the one that Molly's hand has planted itself in front of, it's going to, it'll kind of identify that the hand is there, and it will suddenly, basically out of its kind of face area, shoot a thin, spiky protrusion that just kind of shoots in and goes some amount into your hand. Okay. So, I'm trying to figure out how to resolve this. If I've got one of the sheets open here, I guess give me a discipline plus technology roll.
Okay. What's my discipline? Okay, so that's 8. 1, and then do I get my hybrid technology?
Yes.
Okay, so 4.
So how like fine of a level do you have kind of sensory awareness of what's going on with your hand?
I would say it's sort of like using like a GoPro. So I can see what it's seeing, but it's not like I'm there. It's like I'm watching it happen.
Okay, and so you don't there isn't necessarily like a sensory, like if something happens to it, that's not the same way that you would with your regular hand.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, I think she does have like tactile awareness with it, because otherwise it would be much more unwieldy. So probably that fucking hurt. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's definitely a painful experience. You kind of feel it pierce the skin, so to say, of your morphed hand, and kind of start to kind of dig around like a drill inside. This all happens very quickly, but it doesn't seem like it's not trying to like,
it's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's figuring it out basically. And there's some like energy pulsing. It's clearly trying to like, in some way, kind of get a sense of what this thing that showed up in front of it is and how it connects to what it is. Okay. Could you give me another roll here, which is going to be, I think, cunning plus larceny, actually.
Oh shit! I don't have any larceny, so that's 3.
But still apply the bonus if you can get one success.
All right, 3 days. Oh, nice! But I did get a 10.
Oh, great!
So that's 2 plus the 3, so that'll be 5.
Okay. A thing happens that I will get back to you shortly.
Okay, cool beans.
Okay, I think that leaves Raleth. It's your action. So again, all right. One of these is currently actively nipping at Sydra's heels. The other one is doing some kind of weird invasive face stab thing to Molly's hand, which is transformed into a metallic centipede.
So the door that we were going to go into is currently not open, correct?
Yes, it is not open.
Okay. How big are these centipede things?
They're probably
like dog-sized?
Yeah, they're dog-sized.
All right. I'm going to try and like grab one up real quick and like shove it through one of the pneumatic tubes.
Cool. Okay.
Nice.
I don't know how to do that. I would guess maybe
grappling is under brawl.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just a brawl check.
Yes,
I would do a finesse plus brawl, maybe?
Yeah. I was going to say, it's either going to be might or finesse, depending on how you kind of describe the action taking place.
Yeah, it's just me kind of dexterously picking it up and pushing it through. It's about getting it into that hole.
Like, basically, if you're gingerly picking it up the way that you would when you're trying to get a bug out of the house, then it's finesse. And if you're just kind of Hulk smashing it, then it's might.
Yeah, I don't want to get bit by that mandible.
Okay.
So here we go. Wish me luck. I've got 2 successes on that.
Okay. But you're literally just trying to just toss it. And so you're in the mech, you're going to have I think a 1 skill bonus compared to one piece of this there. So that should work then. So yeah, you could grab it. You're kind of grabbing it by surprise too, because it's focusing on somebody else. And so I assume you just kind of, your big mech arm comes down just like in one smooth motion, basically kind of grabs it and flings it at one of the specific tubes on the other wall, right?
Yeah, one of the ones that looks like it's open and active.
Okay, it kind of splats and gets sucked down. And as soon as it starts to leave, the other part basically looks like it kind of panics, withdraws, jumps into a different tube.
That's awesome.
Oh no, we're taking the tubes.
Yep. Okay, so after that, it's quiet here again.
Okay.
Well, that wasn't so bad.
Those things, or that thing, or something like it, could have been a credible source for the meat cubes.
Yes.
I agree. I agree.
The piece that it stuck into my hand, do I still have that, or did that retreat when the rest of it retreated?
So that gets back to what I had to do that second roll for. So, your hand is basically able to peel off a very limited amount of it, basically, and kind of block it in for analysis.
Okay,
so,
awesome.
If you want to take a look at that before moving forward, like, you can do that.
Yeah, I'd like to, because if there's a way to figure out how to, like, communicate with these things more successfully, that would be really nice.
What do the rest of you want to do while Molly's looking at this?
Can we get this door open?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stand on top of the access hatch.
Okay.
Until we get this door open.
Okay.
With your permission, Molly, I'm going to start folding the openings of these tubes closed.
My only concern is that we might need them at some point to get our own selves out. Is there any way to block them? Like, could you set up, like, something that's...
Well, I can plug 2 of them.
Right.
Okay, so that's the plan then? You're going to bend off all the tubes but 2 and then just kind of hold those shut?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, are they, like, how flexible are they? Like, you said some of them are clear and some of them aren't?
Yeah, the like entrance points are all metallic to be like straightforward here. Like,
we got a bunch of strong people here. I bet we can open them again if we really have to.
Yeah, you probably could.
Okay.
You know, some of the pipelines themselves are clear, but the entry points are all metallic, and it's also you can kind of squeeze shut. So if you had to pry one open again, the aperture would be broken, but you should be able to create an entryway either by peeling it open again or just ripping off the top part, because there doesn't seem to be a mechanism there except for the aperture.
Mm-hmm. I was planning on just making some might rolls to crumple closed some metal tubes. Yeah,
might roll sounds good.
Okay, straight up might or
might plus I don't know what is that plus athletics, I guess.
Yeah.
4 successes.
Okay, yeah, so that shouldn't be too difficult for you. You know, it's a tough metal, but under your strength and with, you know, kind of a little bit of, you know, kind of energetic support to kind of heat it up and make it more pliable, it's certainly something you can do. Start just folding them all shut. So as this is going on, you can certainly secure the room from further slime attacks. So tell me what kind of investigation Molly wants to do here, and give me a roll.
Okay. Well, so she's got this little piece of whatever it is. I think what she wants to sort of reflect on is, like the impulses that were sent out when it was in the hand, if that could be a component of what she captured, like what it was sending out, so that she can try and analyze like what that was in conjunction with what she understands about their like programming and sort of, so these the different rooms that she looked at, to try and figure out kind of rudimentarily like how to successfully send a message to these guys or communicate in a way that they might notice as familiar to them.
Okay.
And then this is, all right, so this will be like analysis, science, enigmas. This will be a big one. And then reason. So this will be 14 again. 9 successes.
Okay.
Adding the hybrid technology.
Okay. So you're able to kind of create like a solid cocoon, you know, inside the structure of your hand to kind of isolate this and then kind of start to get some readings and do some analysis of that. So after a few minutes of poking at it, you can first get a pretty clear picture of what the actual makeup of this is. So what you're seeing is a combination of 2 things. There's a biological, like, liquid-based life form, which, you know, has some qualities similar to other species that you've probably seen somewhere. So nothing too crazy. But it is actually directly infused with a certain volume of nanites.
Okay.
Now, you're familiar with the nanite technology that you use. The ones that are used in most places where they exist are fairly standardized, and they have, you know, a certain level of capability, but you know, it's limited and kind of like functionally built into the design in order to make them so that they are kind of able to be used.
Right, they're pre-programmed.
Yeah, this is something different. So
Okay.
these nanites are a little bit bigger individually than the ones, on that microscopic scale, but a little bit bigger individually. They're kind of jagged, like the actual, even like a cellular level, these are designed to be defensive in a way that Factor A nanites wouldn't be. And they don't seem to have any of the sort of built-in limiters on them. And so they're actually infused throughout the kind of biological entity. They're communicating with each other currently through like electrical impulses through the biogel. They clearly weren't designed for this. Like they're not. It doesn't seem like, somebody was like, I want to figure out what kind of nanites we can put in this. They seem like they're designed for open air use, basically, and then they're doing this.
Okay.
You can also identify based on the actual biogel, like kind of looking at it. It's still kind of DNA based, essentially. And even with just the small sample that you have, you can identify that there are multiple strands here.
Oh, wow.
So it does not appear to be one organism. It appears to be, in some way a combination.
So these guys seem to be just sort of from top to bottom engineered, is kind of what I'm getting from this.
Well, what you're seeing here, yeah.
Okay. This is kind of amazing. I think these were designed by someone. I don't think they were evolved. Which makes me wonder who made them, but I don't know if those are around anymore. These could be sort of leftover security or like protective steps, stuff from whoever built all this was here. As far as like communication or some way of sending information to these guys, was I able to figure out anything?
Well, the bio portion of it clearly is what these different interfaces that you found are built to interact with. So certainly some variant of that, in terms of just what it's capable of interacting with.
Okay.
There's nothing more than that very obviously visible.
Okay. So let's see. I don't know. Maybe I might try like checking into the ship and just sending like a ship-wide message, just basically saying, "Stand down. We're not a threat."
You can certainly do that.
Let's see what happens.
Yep.
Okay. But otherwise, it seems like I'm not going to be able to do much else from here, so I might want to try going through that door, with the caveat that the large moving thing might not be an excess agent, but another one of the goo balls.
Can I help her word that message?
Sure.
While they're working on this, Sidra's just going to lean over to Theron and say, "Do you think that it's going to be angry that Molly stole its junk?"
I really hope that wasn't
I
its
mean,
junk.
I would be.
She just nods.
So with the info and everything that you have, you can definitely get a message broadcasting. Is there something specific, Roleth, you want to kind of incorporate into that?
It's really hard to say. I would do it in such a way that, like, I probably have a pretty traditional way of introducing myself when it's a culture I haven't interacted with.
Okay.
So something that's like overly polite and like descriptive, based on what research I've been able to do, but since I haven't done any research yet, it's just going to be like my standard template. Like, hey, how's it going? I am friend. Don't kill me.
Cool.
Also, here's my card.
So I just want to make sure I understand how this unfolds from Theron's perspective. There is some workshopping of what to say, and then what the message is available to the whole group, right? I know what we said, even if we're not going to spell out.
Yes.
Okay, so and Roleth is still in the mech, right?
Yes.
So once you finished it and the message is transmitted, I'll clap Roleth on the shoulder of the mech and say, "Very wise move, lying to them like that."
It's what I do.
That is true.
We're not a threat. What? We're a walking threat. We're just like, we just ooze threat. Everything about us is threatening. We're
even more than these things do.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think this thing literally oozes threat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, and it ran away scared from us, is my point.
Well, technically, it got sucked into a tube and then was like, shit my pants. And
So I think it's going to be culture plus...
Reason?
I would probably say...
I would say it would be something social. Like grace or presence, maybe?
Culture plus presence?
Grace or presence, I think.
Hang on. My app has died, unfortunately. I can't look up anything anymore. Open it up. And I've got a dog who's very sad.
Yeah.
So for constructing the message, I'm going to get 2, 4, 5.
Okay.
5 successes.
You could definitely craft something extremely politic and smooth-tongued.
I'd better.
Yep. Okay, and so now there are kind of sounds, emanating all around you. Now you still haven't opened the door yet, right?
Right. Because we're scared.
I'm not scared.
I'm scared.
In addition to the sounds, are there also smells?
Oh yeah, probably. What's it smell like?
Well, it definitely smells like blood, because there's still a lot of blood in this room. It smells like whatever the pink thing smelled like, which I assume is like a angel cake or something.
Why? Just because it's pink with sparkles? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
But it
also
smells
smelled
and
like a My
tastes
Little Pony.
exactly like a unicorn frappuccino.
But in any case, I'm ready whenever everybody else is to open this door.
Okay. Let's open the door.
All right, let's do it.
okay. So the door slides open. You see the first section of basically a hallway that is occasionally kind of, like basically there are kind of parts where some of the walls kind of come in a certain degree. So it kind of is semi-divided off, but not really, in kind of segments all the way up, up the path. And so there's a variety of things here. Some of these all seem to match up with what the kind of things that you might expect to see given what you've kind of intuited about the station so far. So there are places where there's kind of little alcoves which have basically chained from the ceiling, little like kind of goblets, like hanging spaces for a liquid to be in.
Oh, like a killer goo, for instance. Yeah.
There are places where there's little tiny complex pipe networks with some kind of starting point at the top and starting point at the bottom, and then like really small fine things that roll through them. There's more like little individual basically workstations that kind of match what you saw on the table, so there's a depression and then a nodule for interacting with the system. And so things like this are kind of spread through various parts of this hall. However, there's also some other stuff here which seems completely distinct from that. So several of these subchambers basically have, the kind of the hallway section goes in and then a portion of it is walled off completely, but it's not walled off by like the metal of the station or something that was built into the design. It's actually walled off by like what looks to be like stone, essentially, that has been put in place. And looks like it's been very meticulously machined and kind of designed. And so what you see is basically these kind of like pale brick-like walls that are built out of tiled rhombus shapes with kind of small gemstones set into them, and then kind of this curvy filigreed like border to kind of a door section. So who here would be the most kind of knowledgeable about basically anything kind of archaeological or in that area?
I would guess Molly.
I mean, I don't know. I wonder if Dang, because he's technically older than all of us.
Maybe not older than Rowlith. I don't know how old Rowlith is.
That's true.
Rowlith, he's 21.
I'd give it a shot, but
I spent a lot of time on the internet.
That's true. Yeah, Sidra's a good person to have weirdo, obscure knowledge.
I can definitely tell you what it's worth.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess Sidra is the person most likely to listen to Space Art Bell, so...
Space Art Bell. Wow.
So do you want to, either of you give me a roll? And this is going to be an Enigma's roll of some kind.
It's Sidra or Dang?
Sidra or Dang.
And I think
Okay.
Sidra is the one that has an Enigma's rating.
I'll take a shot at it.
I mean, I can roll that.
Yeah, that's
it looks like
that is one
a die.
of my better rolls. So.
Well, why don't you roll that one die too, then?
All right.
You both give it a shot.
Yeah. Go team.
Hey, look at that! It's not a success.
I got two. Got 2 out of that.
Okay. You can recognize by the style here, then, that this construction lines up with the style that's consistently been detected in remnants of the Silsi, which are the very poorly understood ancient galactic species that have kind of left some number of artifacts spread all throughout the galaxy that people occasionally discover, but about which very little else is known.
Oh.
So this lines up to the style, except for instead of being a beat up, partially deconstructed artifact, in the ground somewhere, it looks basically pristine.
But it's built into this station, though, right?
Yeah, but again, it's imagine. Basically, imagine a room on the Enterprise or something, one of these kind of metal-bounded, space station-y rooms, and then imagine somebody just came in and built a brick wall up floor to ceiling in the middle of that.
So it's very out of place. I mean, it's just visually, it does not jive with
completely out of place.
Hmm.
But if you look up the hall, you can see there's basically a couple other spots with similar things divided on one spot at the side of the other, all in the same style.
But it also looks like it was installed after the space was the metal space was created.
Yes.
As opposed to they tore it out of somewhere and left it here. Right.
Right.
It fits the space. It
Yes.
just is jarringly mismatched.
Yes.
Okay.
Are the ruins normally made out of this kind of material?
Something like this, yes.
Does it... I mean, is it apparent why the walls are where they are, or it just seems kind of random?
It's not necessarily clear why they are where they are in relation to the whole hallway, except in as much as if you were to look at the structure of this hallway and basically you were to have come in and be okay, how can I split off 4 kind of sections that I can put a wall with a solid door in front of? This is an arrangement that would work for that. But there doesn't seem to be anything else obvious about why they're where they are.
Okay.
And the name of this species is the Cecilgi?
The Silsi, Silsi.
Silsi.
I think it's in our book.
It's in the book.
It sounds familiar. Theron, I assume that Sidra says this aloud.
Oh, yeah.
So when Theron hears the name Silsi, oh, Silsi, I should... Well, no, I suppose I shouldn't.
What?
You suppose you shouldn't... What?
What's going on, buddy?
Theron?
Theron looks thoughtful for a moment, in a way that he doesn't often look thoughtful like this. And then he sort of tilts his head and says, it's one of the 39 primary orders. If we encounter something related to the Silsi, we're supposed to inform Central Command on our homeworld. But they don't want to hear from me, and I don't want to talk to them anymore, so I guess I won't be doing that.
Yay! That's awesome. Those are some pretty nice gems, though, just saying.
I report exactly how much the gems are worth.
It's presumably a lot. So right now this hallway is quiet. Like I said, there's all this stuff in it, so it's kind of subdivided, but you can move pretty straightforwardly from one end of it to the other if you want. And there's a door there similar to the docking door that you came through, which actually will hypothetically connect to the room that you were trying to reach.
Okay.
So it just occurred to me, Vin, that Sidra must have sort of an augmented reality feature where she's just seeing the price of everything that she looks at.
Yeah, it's like in Fight Club. There's just little labels on everything.
Yeah. I was going to say it's like World of Warcraft, but instead of a bar of HP, it's just like it's dollar signs.
Oh, this is the Turgva.
Is there any meaning to the way that the gemstones are laid out in this wall? Like, can I use culture plus reason to suss out the occult meaning of it?
You can try. Give me a roll. You would know, going in that like this has been a tough nut to crack for people all over the galaxy. So,
but this is like a complete piece, right?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. So that's going to be 4. Oh, wait. I have a specialization in occult, so that gives me an extra one?
Yes. The specialty is just a success as long as you roll 1.
It's going to be 5.
So it's just 5. Yeah. So with 5 successes on that, it's certainly enough to identify, like, this probably isn't a big shock, but, the arrangement of all the patterning on this is very deliberate. Looking at it, carefully on this door, the best guess that you can kind of pull together is that these are in some way aligned to a star chart. Like the way that the distance and the magnitude of the different gems are, it looks like it would be that. It's not one that you recognize, but, if you had to guess, there's either it would be someplace from here, the way that things were visible from here, or from some other specific location.
Okay.
And that therefore you might be able to find something out by looking into that.
Okay. I'll save a picture of this, a galactic picture.
Cool.
All right. Are we ready to try and get to the room we were going to try to go to?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say leave the ancient artifact alone for the moment.
For the moment, yes.
Okay.
So you go over. Just tell me how you're arrayed before you open the door first.
I'm going to take my spot on the other side, on one side of the door, aiming inward.
Yeah, and I'll be on the opposite side.
Especially behind...
Yeah, I'm probably behind a large object if there's a large object, and if not a large object, then a large person.
Yeah, you can kind of tuck partway around one of the
Yeah.
corners, so you're not in super direct. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm close to the door, but yeah, maybe me and Theron on one side.
Sure.
Okay.
It makes sense for you to be a little bit further back than me since you're better at range than I am.
Okay. So doors open up. The very first thing you see is, sprawled out on the ground, kind of propped up against one of the walls, is an individual wearing not just the excess uniform, but one that specifically indicates that he would have been the commander of this particular expedition. He's a Kolak, and so he kind of has a pointy face that flares backwards. Kind of brownish red, skin, weird kind of long multi-jointed limbs, and then each of his arms ends in 3 hands. So he's not multiple limbs, but he has kind of different, like a divided, something like that. And he's basically kind of propped up in such a way that he can hold this extremely large plasma weapon pointing, at the door where you guys have just opened it up. There's some blood in here, so he clearly is injured, but he doesn't, it doesn't look like he's on death's door or anything. And he's also gone through a process of going through and burning or smashing the pipe inputs to this room to try to keep himself isolated.
Hey there, Captain. Sorry we didn't bring your cocoa.
He's kind of staring at you, arms still out, doesn't say anything at first.
I'm just going to walk into the room, and I'm pointing my gun down at him. And I tell him, hey, put that down. You don't need that anymore. Your expedition here is over. You've lost. You failed. And this place is ours now. So that's not necessary. Just lay it down. Lay it down. Shh. Be quiet.
He kind of looks over, but it's pretty clear to him that he's beaten in a sense here. So,
oh, I know, and I'm going to rub it in as hard as I can.
Yeah, I'll gently reach over and take his gun away.
Okay. So he's kind of looking up at you. Crabby look on his face. He's waiting for somebody else to say something.
All right. So, tell us what you wanted back in Vercorix.
He kind of looks up at you. Stares at you for a second. Then he just says, I'm Commander Pycron of the Jark, and I refuse to answer.
I will cut open one of the tubes.
Okay.
I'm very confident in my ability to survive whatever comes through that. And I will protect my friends. But you're not my friend. I'd like you to answer her question, please.
Hey, Josh?
Yes?
Sorry, I'm going to use my, what's it worth ability to figure out what is valuable to this person.
Okay.
So it's reason plus empathy. 3, and that's a motivation, so an auto success 4.
Yeah, so it's currently in the process of shifting from being alive to probably not dying in a particularly unfortunate way. So he's kind of been considering his options, and that process was already starting before you got here, but that puts it into fine relief. So, he kind of realizes that he has no cards to play here. You're clearly willing to be the person who asks him to call your crazy bluff, and he can't do it with his cards. So he kind of sighs and he goes, "We were ordered out of normal mission pathway based on information that was obtained by our client in order to act to gain information about the system located at the end of this pathway and to ensure no one else was likely to follow us until we had a chance to do so."
I'm sorry, who's your client?
They don't tell me who the client is. Plausible deniability. That's how we operate. I could give you an ID number.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so they have a double blind thing. There's somebody who actually takes the calls and gets that information. There's something that actually gets conveyed down. There's some way to connect those back up if you could get access to their files or something, but you can't track who the client is just from the information that he gives you here.
Yeah, I file that away.
But he's willing to do that.
What happened to the rest of your men?
The sludge got them.
How many sludges were there? Just one?
I mean, how do you take a liquid? How many oceans are there? How many?
How do you solve a problem like Maria?
Everyone in the room just stares at you after that.
It's a liquid. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of the liquid, but it seems to have ability to divide itself up and recombine. There's enough of it that it was able to have 3 or 4 pieces all the size of a person active at once. When we came on here at first, everything was clear. We were able to begin our objectives and be operating for some time, and then just all of a sudden it showed up.
What was the last thing you did before it showed up?
We were trying to access the central computer. We had already finished placing all the explosives.
Explosives?
Oh, did you not know? This whole place is rigged to explode.
Of course it is.
Why would you do that?
Because if we couldn't get through the central computer, we wanted to bring down the force field somehow.
God, you XS guys are dumb.
Was that an instruction from your commanding officer, or is that your own initiative you decided to blow this place up?
Let's go with initiative.
You're just eager to take credit for that, aren't you? You shouldn't be.
I just don't get why anybody hires you guys. Like seriously, it's incompetence after incompetence after incompetence. You guys have a great marketing armor, I'll give you that. But when it comes to getting shit done, oh my god.
Oh man, I love Rala's petty rivalry with these assholes. It's amazing.
Well, it's really a matter of price points. There aren't a lot of competitors in that specific level of the market. Sidra delivers a small economic summary of the excess business model and how it fits into the galactic economy.
Yeah, and he kind of points bitterly at you with the pointer fingers of several of his joint hands. He kind of grumbles like, silver tier service. So not somebody who's paying for the top shelf, the top shelf material here.
Do you have any idea what's down on this planet, or were you just trying to get through because it was there?
We were able to identify most of this planet is almost completely bare. Based on the readings that we've taken, our best guess is that at some point in the past, this planet was ravaged by nanites. That this is the processed output of nanotechnology gone amok.
Force field's supposed to keep him in, not keep us out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
But at this time, we know that is no longer active because in one spot of the planet, we were able to identify what appears to be the crashed remnants of an extremely ancient ship. And it has not been devoured. It is at the heart of what looks to be construction.
Current construction.
Yes, more recent. So whatever happened to the planet in the past, he's tried to repeat all this based on what the long since departed, science, addendum guy that they had along to look into the stuff was telling him from their investigations. So we know that there's something on the surface, and it's got to be something far more valuable than what we're getting paid for this mission. Or anything on this station, for that matter.
So, Josh, you said that the computer system connects to the force field and whatever tech is down on the planet. I kind of want to jack in again and see if I can... I don't want to take down the force field, but I want to see if I can get a clearer sense of what's going down on the planet, specifically around this supposed crash site.
Sure. Give me a roll.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Dang is kind of fumbling with the rifle that this guy had with his two tentacles. Hands it over to Sidra. You know how to use one of these?
Sort of, in a sense.
Good enough. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
5 successes, and then with the bonus 6.
Okay. So you can certainly get a little bit of a read down there. So what you see is something, so as I mentioned when we came in here before, the surface of the planet kind of looks like one of those sand jars or something. So it's almost entirely, sand, but striped in various different colors and patterns and everything. Which you can kind of infer based on the information he's given is probably something to do with whatever was in each place when it was, essentially atomized.
Okay. There's
one spot where you can see, kind of using the camera network that's on this network of satellites or something, that there's, this extremely large, and it doesn't look like it's an entire ship. It looks like a piece that's big off of something much bigger. So you would guess that this, this piece is probably 3 or 4 times the size of your ship in total. And it kind of looks like 1/2 or so of a cylinder that was kind of sheared off from the outside of something that probably had kind of
big.
Various kind of bumps on it or something. Sheared off, came down towards the ground, and basically the jagged end of it stuck into the sand, so that it's now kind of standing at a not quite a straight angle, but maybe 15 degrees tilted to one side, driven about 1/3 of the way in under the sand directly, and just kind of this, the top of it just kind of jutting up above everything.
So it's the spaceship version of the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yes.
Okay.
and then around it, in seemingly completely different style, there's what seems to be like kind of almost a settlement or a city of some kind. It's been built up. It's constructed entirely in the sand. It seems to line up in kind of coloration with what's locally present. So it's clearly been kind of like raised up directly from where it is, and it extends some way out. Kind of a whole bunch of kind of individual, kind of towers and larger buildings in the area right encircling the spaceship, and then kind of spreading out to kind of a wall on the outskirts. So it's clearly been built up specifically right around the spaceship, or the spaceship piece.
Are there any signs of life there currently? Are there people moving around?
Nothing that
it's just these...
It's hard to get a sense of that at the kind of like level of detail that you have here.
Gotcha.
Does the piece of spaceship that landed look to be the same style as the network of satellites and stations orbiting? Okay.
Is there anything reminiscent between it and the walls that we saw before?
Yes.
Okay.
Similar coloration, rhombus patterns.
Okay. So this might be a Sylvie ship. Well, looks like this guy was telling the truth. He's still kind of a dumb fuck, but he was telling the truth. What do you think about me trying to turn off this network so we can get a closer look at what's going on down there?
I want to disable the explosives so that we don't die.
Yes, please.
I also want to be sure that that those centipedes aren't going to ambush us again.
Okay. So I guess we'll want to, disarm the explosives. There's some in this room. I guess it sounds like there's some all over the place. Like they were pretty much set up. And then we can pick a room to work from and close off the tubes. And that's probably as much protection as we're going to get from the knifey slime.
Yeah, he's like, it's not quite that simple. There's 4 different independent locators on this. We didn't want something to come in and disable this after we put it in place. So there's 4.
Well, you have to have you have to have a way to disable it.
No, why would I have a way to disable it?
Well, because you wouldn't want to get caught up. Yeah, because it would be stupid not to.
It's extremely rare for blowing something up to be a detriment to one of our jobs. Yeah, I mean, note that they specifically got, like, because they were trying to act quickly, they specifically got, like, a mercenary-themed ship to come here and basically deal with a big, archaeological and scientific mystery. So their methodology for any of this stuff is very brute force. They're like, what's the most valuable thing here? It's going to be that crash spaceship. Nobody cares about this other thing. Let's just set it up so that we can blow it up and not worry about the consequences.
Is your boss by any chance a Qualian? They're fond of the direct approach in most things, I've found.
Is it that obvious?
Oh, I was right.
He grunts at you.
What about sending another message over the computer system and asking the slime to deactivate these things? Because I'm assuming they don't want to get exploded.
You can try.
I will try.
I'll drop up the language.
Yeah. So you roll for your thing, and then I guess I'll roll for my thing.
Am I just doing... Is it just technology and reason again, or is it different because now I'm
that's fine.
Chatting? Okay. Do I get a hybrid technology bonus since I'm trying to communicate with hybrid technology? Or is it just electronics?
For this, I don't think so.
Okay. Then 3.
Okay. 6 on the language.
Okay.
Nice.
Actually, am I trying to convince somebody of something they currently don't believe?
We have no way of knowing.
Because I might get scale on that. I have no idea. Yeah. So, Josh, apply scale to that if it's appropriate.
Okay. Your message is broadcasting. You can feel fairly confident that it is having its intended meaning, but monitoring the rooms, which Molly can continue to do from the computer network, you don't see any movement.
Ah, shit. That would have been easy.
So whatever there is, it seems to be entirely within the pipe network now. It does not seem to be responding to the message.
Okay.
Well, looks like if we want to disarm this place, we're going to have to do it ourselves.
That's it this week for the Chimera. You can find us online at thechimera.space, on Twitter or Facebook at ChimeraPod, or by emailing us directly at itsthechimera@gmail.com. Also, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. We're just starting out, so it's a great way for us to reach new audiences. And, just tell your friends. We like your friends. Send them on over. And join us again back here 2 weeks from today. Or less than that if you're not listening to this on Mondays. Every other Monday. That's when you find us. Bye!
I have a plan for him, actually, so
Okay.
I might have to ask you for some money, Sidra.
I'd like to come along. I'll be present at that meeting. I have some influence with the Qualians. They kind of see me as, I guess you'd say, an angel. I'll tell you about it later.
This is a big difference from last time when I came back and the conversation was about plastic bags. To come back this time, the conversation is about horse diarrhea, apparently.
Yeah. Welcome to my world.